J.J. Watt and the Arizona Cardinals taking a dip in the ice. Kevin Durant and LeBron James face off in the NBA All-Star Game, and the eyes of Texas once again being national news.
Texas finally 1-0, finally riding for the brand, although Tom Herman did say they were 1-0 10 times last season.
Feinbaum, I'll give him like half a point.
Dude, you like okay. Feinbaum way too much.
Yeah, all right. I'm like
you're
I'm the Feinbaum of the show.
By the way, that looks... Ohio State, is that an omen? Give me that Longhorn hat.
Oh, man.
Hook him, baby.
All right, he's pulling the Corso.
Welcome into the 1-0 Sports Show. I'm your host, Robert Trevino, and today we have another great show for you. Thank you for joining us on your Friday morning. Clark Dalton, Adam Ogburn joining us. Clark, we'll start with you. How does it feel to be on again today?
It is great to be on. This is an awesome way to start Friday. We have a packed show for you. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. I know for a lot of people it's been a really strenuous week. A lot of tests from that week that was canceled a couple weeks ago. Adam, how are you doing?
Yeah, excited to be on, Robert. Excited that we're into March, Robert. It's been almost 2 years since we've had a March Madness tournament. Just over a week until that bracket comes out.
Yeah, it feels almost about a year ago today that we had our last normal show in the studio for the 1-0 Sports Show. So a lot of milestones coming up with coronavirus. Anyway, let's start the show as we always do. Who's hot or who's not? Clark, we'll start with you. Who's hot?
Well, let's go right to the desert for who's hot. The Phoenix Suns, folks, they have the second best record in the West right now, 23-11, and they're getting better and better. Devin Booker this season has taken his game to another level, which is a scary thought. He's getting much more comfortable with the ball in his hands, attacking the rim. Imagine if Klay Thompson had just a little bit of a handle. That's the type of player Devin Booker is becoming. And you can see Chris Paul has been a really strong addition for them, bringing that veteran leadership in, and he still has the skills to match. And DeAndre Ayton is also developing into a very solid player. Now, I didn't really think when they added Chris Paul this offseason that they would be among the top teams in the West, but they're showing they're ready to contend now, and they have a very bright future.
Yeah, the Phoenix Suns, one of those teams that I think we're really going to have to look out for. I certainly agree that's a great choice of who's hot. Adam?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of somewhat stay in the desert. I don't know, Robert, if you would consider this the desert, but we're going to head up to Lubbock. How about the Texas Tech student manager, Ty Larson? He got the chance to come in for the Red Raiders on senior night with the Red Raiders up big against Iowa State. There he is coming into the game. You know, you normally look for the student manager, maybe get a shot, look for him to get, a three, but instead he does the dirty work in the lane. He takes the charge, gets a standing ovation from the Red Raiders student section, MVP chants from around the arena. Just such a great moment. You know how much work these student managers put in behind the scenes, and it's great to see Ty Larson get his chance on the court and make the most of it.
Yeah, that is. I will say Lubbock, it might as well be the desert, so I'll give you that one. All right, getting to who's not. Clark, who's not for you?
Well, unfortunately, I hate to pick on this fan here, but this is why you always keep your eye on the ball. So right here, this is spring training. Ryan Zimmerman, deep. Of course, it's gone, but you watch this dude in the Mets jersey. Look, he's got the ball. Dude, it's on the ground. Pick it up, and he loses his souvenir. It's oh so close. You can see he almost had it. He thought he did, and oh, wait, I don't have it. Has to be frustrating as a fan. I've always wanted to catch a home run ball, but I definitely wouldn't want that to happen to me and don't wish that upon anyone.
Yeah, I think he went for the style points over the substance, trying to flex that he had it. You got to make sure and get the mitt on it first. Adam, who's not for you?
Yeah, I'm going to go across the pond for this one. How about Liverpool and how quickly they've fallen apart? Heading back before 5 matches ago, they'd won 68 straight home games dating back to April 2017. Now, after yesterday's 1-0 defeat to Chelsea, the Reds have lost 5 home league matches in a row. And to Burnley, Brighton, Manchester City, Everton, and Chelsea, you can maybe understand the Man City and Chelsea losses. The Everton's a really tough loss in the derby. And then Burnley and Brighton are 2 inexcusable losses for Liverpool. You can see why Manchester City's running away with the title. There's a bigger gap between Liverpool and Manchester City right now than there is from Liverpool down to 18th place Fulham. Shows how quickly the Reds have fallen off the rails.
Yeah, just another one of those things. I mean, you win so many in a row and you lose 5 straight when it seems inconceivable to even lose one. Just kind of, I don't know if it's a law of averages, something. This isn't very statistically savvy host. But anyway, let's get into what's trending around the sports world, starting with the NBA All-Star Game draft. The NBA All-Star Game draft took place, I believe, a few nights ago. LeBron James and Kevin Durant made their selections. LeBron James selecting Giannis Antetokounmpo first with the first overall pick, and Durant, taking Kawhi. So, looking at the rosters, how did you guys feel about them? Clark, we'll start with you.
I think LeBron James got a huge edge with the first pick because just look at his team there. You have Luka Doncic, Damian Lillard, Steph Curry, and Nikola Jokic on the same team. Those are 3 players who are all perennial MVP contenders. And I think it was interesting to see the strategy Kevin Durant went with because it kind of fits his play style more. He went with a lot more shooters, stuck with his teammate and Kyrie Irving, and then he has Devin Booker coming off the bench. So I think LeBron did a really good job of taking advantage of that first pick, while Kevin Durant kind of had to counteract everything, which is kind of like how it goes in pickup basketball sometimes. Usually the player who is the first pick ends up getting a huge advantage and ends up winning the game. Also, I thought this was kind of an interesting side note, but to see the last 2 picks of the NBA All-Star Draft be the Utah Jazz, it was just sort of interesting to see. There's kind of a little bit of a rivalry right now with the Lakers and Jazz, and that storyline played into it as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Adam, who do you think won this draft?
Man, that's a tough one, Robert. I would go with Team LeBron because the way I see it, I think Team LeBron has definitely the better starting lineup. I think Clark kind of said it with that first pick, getting Giannis and having him team up with LeBron in the lineup. And then you look at the explosiveness of Steph Curry and Luka Doncic, and you got the big man Nikola Jokic in the paint. So I think Team LeBron wins the draft because they have the better starting lineup. However, I think Team Durant, I think they have the better bench. If you look at guys like James Harden, Devin Booker, having those 2 guys coming off the bench, then you got the explosiveness, the strength of Zion Williamson, and then Julius Randle. He's having a heck of a season for the next 23.2 points per game. It's a career high for him. So I think KD has more depth on the bench, but I think LeBron has the better starting lineup.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And let's go ahead and move on to what else was trending. Talking about a former Houstonite, now Arizona Cardinal. Let's take a look at the footage with the ice bath that he was in. I believe if we have that. Not footage, some tweets here. So taking a look at this, is this a good method for an NFL player, especially one of this caliber? What are your thoughts on this, Adam?
Yeah, I wouldn't put anything past J.J. Watt. And man, Robert, it seems like every week I'm on this show to talk about either an ex-Houston player or someone who's about to be an ex-Houston player. I mean, the Texans are just falling apart so quick, but I mean, this is such a J.J. Watt thing. He went to college up at, started at Central Michigan, went to Wisconsin, so he's used to the cold. And honestly, he's almost like a superhuman figure in Houston, so it doesn't even surprise me he's pulling that off as his ice bath.
Yeah, I brought up a lot of Houston in past weeks. You are right, Adam. Clark, how do you feel about this?
This is taking the segment of who's hot and who's not to a new level because there's no way JJ is warm in that ice bath. That has to be a huge risk for hypothermia. But I'm just surprised, like the facial expression he has on with the arms crossed like this, not even like having a little bit like, it's kind of cold in here. That's impressive. And it's kind of interesting because now with all these pass rushers in the NFL, you talk a lot about Aaron Donald, his brother, TJ Watt as well, that we kind of forgotten to put JJ Watt in that elite circle. But I think this is just kind of his way of reminding us like, hey, I'm still one of the baddest dudes in the NFL.
Yeah, he's comfortable in the heat of Houston and supposedly of Arizona he's going to be, and he's comfortable in the ice. So a man of many trades. Moving forward to another man of many trades in the NFL, Baker Mayfield, Cleveland Browns quarterback, claiming that he saw a UFO with his wife in Austin, Texas, right here in Austin, Texas. He says almost 100% his wife and I just saw a UFO drop straight out of the sky on their way home. So, Clark, we'll start with you. Do you agree with Baker on this one?
I mean, anything is possible, but we don't know what Baker is up to. Maybe, he had a few margaritas or something and thought he was seeing things. I don't know. But it's just one of those things, like, it's so weird. It's hilarious. So I'm kind of going to give some props to Baker on that, just to be so outright and so brutally honest in what he's seeing, I guess. But if Baker continues to play like he did at the end of 2020, he can see as many UFOs as he wants as long as he starts winning more playoff games.
Yeah, Adam, is this wishful thinking, or do you think maybe he was granted some sort of some help from a higher being that's going to help him next year?
I think Baker might be getting a call from Kevin Stefanski in the next couple of days asking if he's all right, coming home and seeing UFOs and stuff like that. But, oh, boy, good old Cleveland. You never know what's going to come out of the Cleveland Browns. And so – but we'll see. I mean, Baker, he's turned the Browns around, so maybe he does have help from, powers above, because it does take a lot to turn Cleveland back around into a playoff contender.
Yeah, you are right. And let's get into the NBA to finish up what's trending. Take a look at Bryce Aiken, who jinxed himself. There's really no other way to say it. I believe he said, "I ain't never missing." I thought this clip was going to have audio. I apologize to the viewers. But so he says, "I ain't never missing," and proceeds to break both of the shots. So Daniel, our producer, saying, "Where's the sound?" No worries on that one, Daniel. I got you right there with a little closed captioning, a little dub effect. So Clark, how are you feeling about that? Is jinxing real?
Absolutely, jinxing right there. In that particular situation, it actually kind of affected his form a little bit, because he kind of, when he gets up into his shot, I'm sorry to kind of get into the nitty gritty of basketball, but when he gets up in his shot, he kind of looks away from the rim for a second and then lets it go and doesn't follow through all the way. And that's why the ball actually fell a bit short. And it's one of those things. Sometimes you have to realize during the course of the game, just let your game do the talking and don't necessarily get into it with guys and start jawing, because that's when you can start to make mistakes. There are very few players who can just automatically sort of get angry during the middle of the game, especially at the foul line. There's that one classic clip of Michael Jordan closing his eyes and making a free throw. But even then, he fully got into his form before he did it. So it's just one of those things. It's a young college player, and he hadn't missed a free throw all season. That's what people forget. So he's a good shooter, but it's a good lesson for him to learn. Unfortunately, it's just a bit embarrassing.
Yeah, no, I liked how you also got technical there too. So
of course,
that's the kind of stuff we're bringing on the One of Those Sports Show. You got to wake up for this one. Adam?
Yeah, I agree with Clark. Jinxing is definitely real. I think everyone who's seen the Dr. Pepper Fansville commercials know that from this past season. But I mean, and you look in the clip, Seton Hall, I think, was down by 12 when he was shooting those free throws, or maybe it was 11. But anyway, there's no need to be talking trash when you're down by that much. You're trying to claw your team back in the game. You haven't missed a free throw all year. Those are two crucial points to slowly start chipping away at the lead, trying to get it down to a single-digit deficit. You just got to go to the foul line and do what you've been doing all year and make them. You don't need to be talking trash when you're down the game or taking the focus away from making two free throws. It's just kind of a selfish act at the end of the day. So just focus on doing what your team needs from you, and then you can talk trash after the game.
Yeah, the only person I've seen really do the free throw thing well is Kobe Bryant. So kind of hard to live up to the Black Mamba. That's going to do it for what's trending. When we come back, we'll have Steve Helwick, TSTV legend, Supreme Cardinals fan. We're going to talk to him about J.J. Watt and all of that. Stick around. This is the One and No Sports Show.
Men's basketball team needs to stop social distancing themselves from fans.
It has been overdone to death. Playing. Don't stop believing.
$5. Bye-bye, Raptors.
Welcome back into the One and No Sports Show. I'm your host, Robert Trevino, Adam Ogburn, Clark Dalton. To my right, beneath me on your screen, a man who needs no introduction, but will certainly get one, Steve Helwick, TSTV legend. Thank you for joining us, Steve. How are you doing this morning? Oh, Steve, I think you're muted.
I'm doing excellent. I'm happy to be back on here, and I really wish this One and No Sports Show existed when I was in college. I think the work you guys do here is great, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Oh, well, thanks so much. I'll go ahead and open up the questions here, starting with the topic I mentioned right before we went to break. J.J. Watt signing with the Cardinals. Know you're a big Cardinals fan, and Not just talking about J.J. Watt, but what are your thoughts on the overall postseason, or the offseason, excuse me, that the Cardinals are having? Does it set them up for success?
I think it does. When you get a player of J.J. Watt's magnitude, not just what he brings to the field, because you could say that his best days are already behind him, but it feels like bringing a Tom Brady type player in terms of leadership that other players are going to want to sign in Arizona for. Guys are going to load up, try to get some vet mins, and try to run it with Arizona. It's a nice place to play. The organization seems to be on the come up with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins as one of the most lethal combos in the NFL. And then you also have rising stars like Budda Baker, a first-team All-Pro safety on defense. So when you add that veteran leadership of J.J. Watt, who could be replacing a potentially retiring Larry Fitzgerald this year, as that voice that you need in the locker room, it is huge for the Cardinals. And this is a team that hasn't made the playoffs since 2015. And I feel like this is a great move to get in place to build that foundation and improve that defense, improve that pass rush. And J.J. Watt's going to bring it to work every day. You heard that rant he had after that loss to the Bengals in December on how he just felt the team wasn't working hard enough and he owed it to the city. And J.J. Watt's going to bring in that work. So I'm excited about that signing. And it caught me by surprise when it first happened.
Yeah, for sure, Steve. And so you talk about, Cardinals haven't made the playoffs since 2015. Now you have, Kyler Murray leading the offense. You have star players, J.J. Watt now on the defense. Do you think this is a Cardinals team that can win the NFC West next year?
I'm not sure about win the NFC West because that is a loaded division. The Rams are getting Matt Stafford at quarterback there, and that seemed to be the missing piece of Sean McVay's offense. The Rams already have a lot of firepower on defense led by Aaron Donald. There's question marks with the Seahawks now. The Seahawks have always been consistent, but I don't know what the future of Russell Wilson entails. My gut instinct tells me he's going to return to Seattle, and the Seahawks are going to continue being their machine of the Patriots of the NFC in terms of consistency of winning the division and appearing in the playoffs. But I think the Cardinals should be a lock for a top 7 seed. I thought it was an embarrassment that they let the Chicago Bears in over them last year, especially after watching that Bears-Saints playoff game. But this Cardinals team, I've talked about how much talent that they have. Kyler's developing. He's one of the best dual-threat quarterbacks in the league. You could argue DeAndre Hopkins is a top receiver in the NFL. And now you have Chandler Jones, who's going to return healthy next year after a torn bicep. Pass rushing and the same defense as J.J. Watt. Those players have the most sacks in the NFL since 2012. 1 and 2 are Jones and Watt. So there's so much talent all around on this team. Now it's just the Cardinals need to improve their coaching and their offensive line, and that's how they can really become Super Bowl contenders in the near future.
Absolutely. You have to be excited about the future of the Cardinals, but I also want to talk about the future of UT men's basketball. Steve, we know this team is really talented this year. They have a lot of good players. Matt Coleman, Courtney Ramey starting to come into his own. Greg Brown is an exciting freshman. But if you had to pick one, who's the most important player for the Longhorns down the stretch?
I would have to say it's Andrew Jones. He's been the heart and soul of this team for a long time now. He played in that 2016-17 season with Jared Allen as a true freshman, thinking he was going to be a one-and-done prospect. And for him, he had to deal with the leukemia, and he overcame it. And he's just been courageous, and he's been a warrior since. And when you see him play, he can be a bucket getter down the stretch. He's one of the team's leading scorers. And I think Andrew Jones has built chemistry with some of the guys over the year. 4 of those 5 starters were in college when I was 2 years ago with Jericho Sims and Courtney Ramey. And there's just so many guys in the lineup that have been Shaka Smart players for a few years. And you see them buy into a system. And when you have a veteran-led squad, now you have Texas's best team under the Shaka Smart era, and they're currently destined to be around a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I feel like since we have you here, we got to bring up the old topic that seems like old reliable at this point. But Shaka and the hot seat, are those two things in the same ballpark anymore? And if so, is there any sort of disappointment this year that he could bring that might end up costing him his job?
No, I've always been against firing college coaches in the COVID-19 climate, especially just because the student athletes are going through a lot, and I don't think you can always fairly assess some coaches' performances, because Texas had that stretch this season where they lost 3 games and they were without Shaka Smart for some of those games and without some of their key student athletes. So I think Shaka Smart should be safe no matter what. And I think this would be a great season for him to get that first tournament win, because I don't know how many people foresaw Texas being a top 4 seed prior to the season, but the Longhorns fit the part right now, and they could be maybe Sweet 16, Elite 8 contenders.
All right, Steve, we're going to make you nail down that prediction now. So you look back at the Shaka Smart era. They lost to Northern Iowa on a half-court shot in the first round back in, I believe, 2015. And then 2017, they folded in Nevada. I think they had the lead in that game. They kind of let it slip away. So now, do they get that first tournament win this year? What are your predictions for the postseason for the Longhorns this year?
They do. I like 4 seeds to beat 13 seeds most of the time, and that is where Joe Lunardi currently has them in their bracketology, playing UC Santa Barbara. I think this should be a win for Texas. They're deep. They have a lot of scoring threats, multiple guys averaging double digits per game. You have a lot of ball-dominant players, Courtney Ramey, Matt Coleman, Andrew Jones, who can all create their own shot off the dribble. So I think that Texas's scoring versatility combined with their interior rim defense with Jericho Sims and Greg Brown, I think Texas has a good all-around team that can beat a 13 seed and even go further. And I like to see what they could do against a 5 or 12 seed in the second round in order to get that Sweet 16 appearance under Shaka.
So, Steve, how far do you think they go?
I'm going to say Sweet 16 this year. I think that it'll be a close game in the Sweet 16. That'll come down to a final shot or whatever, even if it's against a 1 seed, because I think there's a lot of parity in college basketball right now, aside from Gonzaga. If they could get a 1 seed, Illinois, I think, was a 1 seed in the bracketology, I'd say today. I think that would be a bracket that Texas would love to be a part of.
And Steve, I know we're probably driving you crazy asking you to make all of these predictions now, but the NBA Finals race is becoming really interesting this year, because you see a team like Utah at 27-8, and then the Philadelphia 76ers coming along, but you still kind of have what a lot of people consider as perennial favorites in the Lakers and Nets. Do you think it's going to be kind of that expected result, or should we see someone else in the NBA Finals?
It is so balanced and so difficult to make a prediction right now, because until the last 4-game stretch, the Utah Jazz were playing some 2015 Warriors basketball. I was drawing a lot of parallels between those teams, as they were both 6-seed first-round exits in the prior year, and suddenly they seem to be playing a new style. Utah's predicated a lot on the three-point shot, and their defensive rating is one of the top in the NBA. Their ball movement is great. Mike Conley has stepped up. Jordan Clarkson is the 6th man of the year, and he's playing defense at an all-time high. So I liked everything I saw from the Jazz, but they seem to face a little bit of a roadblock lately. So I don't know if I could call them overwhelming favorites as I thought they were a week ago. But there's so much balance in the West. You have the Phoenix Suns as a 2 seed, which nobody saw coming. And then the teams, what I would call the big 3 before the season were the Lakers, the Nuggets, and the Clippers were the 3 West contenders. And all 3 of them have disappointed a little bit. But the Lakers don't have Anthony Davis, and they've really struggled with Davis out. But I think Davis and LeBron James together will always be a lethal duo, especially if Dennis Schroeder remains healthy with the bunch. So you would put the defending West champions as the favorite right now, but there's so much balance in the West, and it feels like anything can happen in the playoffs. You line up those teams 1 through 8, you have 4 good series right now, just because you have the Mavs and Warriors at the bottom of the conference. And with Luka and Steph, even those teams can make some noise. So I really like the playoff picture in the West. And then turning it over real quick to the East, I'm not as sold on the Nets as other teams. I think defense is an important part of winning a championship. And I just don't see how they could stop someone like Giannis from driving into the paint every single time and getting points in that 4-out, 1-in offense. And then when you go to Philadelphia, Joel Embiid is my MVP frontrunner. And what he's doing to Rudy Gobert, who's a multi-time Defensive Player of the Year award, he's dropping 40 and 11 on him. What's he going to do when the Nets throw old, lethargic DeAndre Jordan, who doesn't have the lateral movement he used to in the paint? What are you going to do to stop a Joel Embiid? And then overall, the Sixers have built a much better team around him this year, using Seth Curry as a shooter. Ben Simmons has been locking up like a Defensive Player of the Year. I think the East is a tight race too with Milwaukee, Philly, and Brooklyn. But I think this might be one of the more compelling NBA Finals matchups we'll get in a while, just because it's so up in the air at midseason.
Yeah, and we're going to have to see how that all pans out. But, Steve, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Glad to have a legend back on, and hopefully we'll have you on sometime soon once again. When we come back, though, we're going to be going into the locker room, talking about Kevin Garnett, Les Miles, and the Eyes of Texas. So wherever you are, stay there. You're watching the One and Know Sports Show.
Men's basketball team needs to stop social distancing themselves from fans.
It has been overdone to death. Playing, don't stop believing.
Bye, Bucks. Bye-bye, Raptors.
Men's basketball looks for a key win against Iowa State. Women's basketball is tested against the number 2 team in the nation.
The Longhorns had a dominant pitching performance in the latter half of the game, led by Pete Hansen.
I get to say some of the most exciting words in football. The Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock. And picking for
Texas started the third with the lead and continued to gain momentum on defense.
Hello and welcome into the first social distancing college press box ever.
Welcome back into the One and Know Sports Show. I'm your host, Robert Trevino, once again joined by Adam Ogburn, Clark Dalton. Guys, welcome into the locker room with me. Time to talk about 5 of the top sports topics of the week, starting with Kevin Garnett, who his group that had placed a bid to partly own the Minnesota Timberwolves or gain full ownership control. That fell through, so Kevin Garnett no longer going to be owning the Timberwolves. He posted something on his Instagram story saying that it's time to move on to other affairs, move on to other business prospects. So my question is to y'all, are the Timberwolves better off? Adam, we'll start with you.
I mean, you've seen it under Glenn Taylor, under his ownership. I mean, the Timberwolves have only made the playoffs once since 2004, to the 2003-2004 season, and that's when Garnett was part of the team that led them to the Western Conference Finals. So I think this would have been a perfect reunion. You have a star player. The Timberwolves, their greatest success came when Kevin Garnett was there for his 12 seasons between '96 and '07. So I think this would have been a perfect reunion if Garnett could have had, if he had a bid and he had the money behind that bid to support this Timberwolves team and try to make something out of them. I think this would have been a perfect reunion. So it's kind of a shame to see that fall through.
Yeah, the reunion aspect would have been real nice, as well as the success that you mentioned one time in the playoffs. Clark, do you agree? Or
yeah, I'm in complete agreement with Adam, just because there are very few players in NBA history who have been as maniacal about winning as Kevin Garnett. And that's what I like about him, because you've seen over the past couple of years, it's not like the Timberwolves haven't drafted that badly. They had Kevin Love for a long time. Karl-Anthony Towns is as talented as any player. They had Zach LaVine and D'Angelo Russell as well. So there is no reason they shouldn't at least be a playoff team with that type of talent, but they just don't have the mentality or culture for winning. And that's what Kevin Garnett understands. For example, Karl-Anthony Towns, great player, but one little criticism of him that you have is sometimes he's not, I don't know the right term for this necessarily, but he's not as gritty as Garnett was. And when Garnett was there and teaching Cat, we saw him be a little bit more aggressive and take initiative. And that's when he was having some of his best years. And I think Kevin Garnett is not like other NBA owners who were great players and bought a team and weren't successful. Garnett, if you know his story, knows how to surround himself well with other people. And I think that would have made him much more successful and helped the Timberwolves keep going in the right direction, because they've been abysmal for the last 15 years.
Yeah, you got to wonder if that's a missed opportunity for the Wolves. Moving forward, talking about former LSU head coach Les Miles, who in an internal investigative report that was released by LSU this Thursday, or last Thursday, was reported that he was banned from contacting female students in his time at LSU. So are there any, and if so, what repercussions that Les Miles or other members of the organization should face? And Clark, I'll start with you on this one.
I think there definitely should be repercussions. I don't know what they are. I don't want to comment on that yet, but let's go into the details of this report. You had an adult male who's married taking complete control of the hiring and provision of female students. The details of this report were, quite frankly, disturbing. You saw in the report that he was accused of harassing female students by constantly texting them. He was accused of kissing one of his female students. He denied that. And you have to understand that this is a serious issue because this is someone in a position of power trying to take advantage of young female students. And I know they're adults, but come on, these are still young people who can be taken advantage of. And that's not what college football is about. People who join college football as coaches are supposed to make people's lives better by being a leader. And this is not an example of good leadership to me.
Yeah, and that also calls into question, that's one of those things, like you said, with leadership that doesn't just go away depending on, you're not coaching for LSU anymore with him now being at Kansas. Adam, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of, go back, a couple of years ago. Say what you want about Charlie Strong on the field, right? But off the field, he instilled a culture at Texas. He was a leader. His core values at Texas, no drugs, no guns, no stealing, be honest. And the last one of the most important ones, and one that applies to this situation, treat women with respect. These college football coaches are expected to mold these, 18 through 21, 22-year-old young men into leaders and into fathers and into, husbands once they graduate from college. If you have, the head coach of a football team at LSU and now Kansas, and, he's making these questionable decisions, the report, everything's still coming out, all these investigations, so you don't want to speculate on all that happened and, what is really happened and what didn't. But still, the fact that Les Miles is in this situation, I think, like Clark said, repercussions definitely need to happen because this can't, you can't have a leader of the program acting like this when he's supposed to be molding young men and teaching them to treat women with respect.
Yeah, very disappointing moment for Les Miles and LSU. Moving forward into another college football controversy, a little bit of a different one, I'll admit. The Eyes of Texas controversy brought up once again, this time emails leaking that did have some content that was racially charged or racist, and players that also claimed their professional careers outside of football were threatened. So what are your reactions just first off to this story, Adam?
Robert, it's ridiculous that boosters or the people who are sending those emails will treat players like this. These are players that are giving so much to the football program. They're waking up, they're practicing at probably ridiculous hours. They're waking up way early in the morning. They're probably going to bed, way later at night than most people. They're practicing so much for this team. They're balancing schoolwork among it. They're giving this all to this university, and this is how you treat them. And I think a lot of it, you always hear the adage growing up that, in order to understand a person, you got to walk in a day in their shoes, or you got to look at something from their perspective. And I think that's something that's being overlooked a lot with this from these, boosters. Probably a lot of them are, richer boosters. They don't know what some of these players have had to go through to get to this point. So, you'd expect to see more respect, more empathy, and a more, trying to understand where these players are coming from rather than just shooting them down for, not respecting the school song that you think should be respected.
Yeah, Clark, what about you?
I really wish I had read these emails because I was appalled at the content that was in them. And I think there's a lesson in all of this. Is just typing a hateful – what does typing a hateful email do? It does nothing. It's a waste of time. Even if you disagree on something, it does no good whatsoever. It's like the saying, 2 wrongs don't make a right. There's no reason to type up a mean, nasty email to somebody and just threaten kids off the field. And I think some people are missing the point in this argument. It's not saying we want to get rid of all traditions, because you have to remember the saying, you need to remember history. And if you don't, it repeats itself. We're just reevaluating aspects of our history to try to make a better world today. We want to adhere to those values that make humans good. We're talking about sympathy and decency. That's all we're trying to do. We're not trying to say, oh, tradition is bad. And you shouldn't do that to people. That's mean-spirited. It does nothing. It's hurtful, and it's disappointing to see.
Yeah, once again, a lot of disappointing actions, especially from UT alumni. Moving forward, seeing that next week UT will release a report. The Eyes of Texas Commission will release that report. So this, and by no means am I asking for a full-fledged idea system or whatever, but what do you think is the right course of action generally for UT football and administration to take? It seems like this is a little bit of a tough spot. You have pressure from the boosters, it seems, and a lot of students want this song changed. So what do you think is the right course of action? Clark?
I think it's time for change is the right course of action, because I hate to sound like a broken record player, but it's just like I just said. If you keep something for a while, people have a tendency to forget things, because this is the thing about history is not everybody studies it in great detail. So if you just kind of keep something for a while, people grow apathy towards it and don't really care, and they don't understand the impact behind things. So I think there needs to be strong action taken to say, hey, we made mistakes in the past, but this is not acceptable now, and we're going to change to make this better.
Yeah, great response. Adam, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with Clark. You can't marginalize such a big section of the student body. You can't marginalize, a lot of these players who are speaking out against it. You can't, and I think you see this with college athletics a lot. These players get used for revenue and money. It's kind of you always hear it, shut up and dribble or shut up and play sports. And I think, it's getting to a point where, these players, a lot of them have, probably they've grown up in situations that have given them different perspectives than maybe a lot of these boosters or a lot of, the Texas executives have. But I think it's important that you work with these players, and, and if you can't come to, a solution where you feel like the Eyes of Texas is going to be a song that everyone feels comfortable with, then I think, like Clark said, I think you got to start looking towards change, because that's kind of just the direction that everything is heading in. Because this is not going to subside soon if you have a school fight song that a lot of the student body feels disrespected by.
Yeah, and I'm very interested to see the report. It's already been said they're going to keep the song, I believe. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see, and we'll discuss it in the future. To finish it out, though, let's talk some Texas basketball. And how are we feeling about the end of this regular season? Because there's one game left, and then Texas will move into the postseason, where we were. I got to say, I was excited last year around this time to see what Texas could do, and we never got to see that occur, obviously, with coronavirus. So just a more generic question, how are you feeling about Texas basketball right now, Adam?
Well, I'm feeling hopeful. And Robert, you talked about this time last year, heading into the last game was that big home games against Oklahoma State. Everyone's super excited, and then Texas goes out and absolutely gets destroyed. They were down pretty much double digits the entire game. We got into the stadium a couple minutes late. They're already down, I think by double digits. It was like 13-2. They never cut into that lead, really. It was always a 10, 15-point cushion for Oklahoma State. But this year, I feel like it's different. The depth this Texas team, the talent they have. Jace Febres is, still coming back from his injury. He scored 9 and 11 points, 2 season highs in the past 2 games. You've got Courtney Ramey, who's hitting up from 3, 7 of 8 against West Virginia. He was 3 for 4 last night. Matt Coleman only scored 2 points last night against Oklahoma, and Texas still came away with a huge 4-point victory. When you have the amount of players, the amount of depth that Texas has, the amount of guys that can step up, this Texas team, I think, could be a dangerous one in March, especially if they catch fire from 3 with guys like Courtney Ramey, Andrew Jones, and Jace Febres.
Yeah, Clark, how are you feeling? A lot more excitement? Or because I know I'm feeling a lot more excitement than I did last year at this time. I agree with Adam. This is a materially different team and a materially different feel. But how are you feeling?
There's a funny story I want to tell you guys about that Oklahoma State game. That was the last sporting event I went to in person, and I just lost it at halftime because I went to the game early. I couldn't take it anymore. They were playing so badly because they had been on a bit of a winning streak beforehand, and you were getting excited. Then you get your hopes up, and then it goes straight down like that. And I'm not going to lie. I saw a Gatorade bottle. I kicked it. I didn't care. I was angry as a fan. Probably not the appropriate reaction, but hey, it was a good stress relief. But I am much more excited just because you see this team making strides every game. Even in games they lose, they learn something. For example, with Oklahoma, they lost 80-79 at home. And then last night, you go on the road in a tough game. And when it gets close down the stretch and you worry about Shaka Smart teams in the past, are we going to have a choke here? But for them to hold on, Matt Coleman being aggressive and taking big shots, it shows that they're getting better at the right time. I think they have really good prospects heading into the tournament.
Yeah, Clark, I agree. This team is way more gritty than last year. You look at the big road win against West Virginia. They gutted out a win against Kansas at home in overtime, and they go out last night and edge out a big win on the road. So the ability to close. Now, we've seen them blow big leads. We've seen them do it against West Virginia and Kansas State. That's got to be something that they cannot do in March, because that's how they'll get upset in the first round. But they do seem to be a lot more grittier down the stretch this year.
And more confident as well.
Yeah, we'll see if because that really is the thing in March. You need the gritty, the toughness. You need the ability to hang down the stretch, especially when the games are close. And I think I can already see the game in my head, and as I'm sure a lot of Texas fans can, that they're going to be playing maybe in the round of 32 or the Sweet 16, and it's just going to be really, really close. And we'll see if they pull through. If not, if they do, I think the sky's the limit for this team. So anyway, when we come back, we'll be doing some BS or real talk. We got Space Jam. We're talking about that, so just be ready for that. We got Space Jam 2. And then we'll give you some top 4 college basketball picks. So stick around. You don't want to go anywhere.
Good pocket protection. Good pocket protection. Look at that. It's a cheat. Gotta keep studying Astros film.
Daniel,
what are you doing here so early?
I slept great.
Welcome back. Now, welcome back into the One and No Sports Show. I'm your host, Robert Trevino, Adam Osborne, Clark Dalton here with me. It's time for some BS or real talk. I'm going to give you a statement. You tell me if it's BS or real talk. Let's get right to it. LeBron James, Space Jam 2. We got more stills from that. Here's the statement. It's going to be better than the original. BS or real talk? Adam?
Well, I've never actually seen the original, so I'm not going to be. I'm not going to be of much use in this one. But I'm going to go BS because I swear sequels never live up to the hype.
Hey, that's a good strategy. I'm just surprised you've never seen it before. I feel like that's a little bit of NBA sacrilege, but I mean, to be honest, it's just one of the things you have to watch. I'm not sure if it's a legendary film. Clark?
Adam, that's your homework. Watch Space Jam wherever you can find it. I'm always kind of the opinion that sequels are most of the time never as good as the original, so I'm going to go with BS.
Yeah, I can agree here with that one. I do think Space Jam was a little bit overhyped, I think nostalgia-wise, so I think Space Jam 2, we'll see what they do with the story. Not to get too, this isn't really a film show, but yeah, with that we'll move forward into Jim Boeheim. He got into it with the reporter, in fact, saying eventually that he couldn't really take what they were saying seriously because of their height. Let's take a look.
But I think we have gotten better as a team, and I think it's hard to go 9-7 in this league. I think it's a difficult league, very difficult.
Our next question is from
but if I had played Jesse and Kadari, we'd probably be 22-2 now. I just didn't see that, and I couldn't figure that out by myself after 45 years. I need a reporter to figure that out, who's never played basketball and is 5'2".
Hey, yeah, I know they've never played basketball, but 5'2", I'm gonna say that's a little too far. Is that BS or real talk, Clark?
That's real talk. It's always hard as a journalist at a press conference when a coach is coming off a loss and they're angry, and maybe it's a season where expectations haven't been met. I've had that experience myself. It's never fun to deal with, but still, I think Boeheim needed to show a little bit more respect in that situation.
Adam, how about you? BS or real talk?
Yeah, I think it's real talk. I mean, Boeheim, he says he's been coaching for 45 years, right? You think he'd have thicker skin too. I mean, it's just the opinion of a reporter. It's just a tweet he sent out to say, if Boeheim had played these 2 reserve players more, Syracuse might be, 17-5. They might have a little bit of a better record. I mean, it's just a reporter's opinion. He wasn't, maybe Boeheim took it as a shot, but he wasn't, openly, coming out and, absolutely. He didn't call Boeheim by name. He didn't come out super critical in the tweet. It was just his opinion. And I just don't think that Boeheim needs to go anywhere near his height. That's something that he can't control as a reporter or as a human.
Yeah, agreed here. Moving into, I guess you could call it college football. You could call it some semblance of arena fan football. Now it's golf. Johnny Manziel, saying he's going to.
I'm going to jump in here. I'm the producer for the show. I'm the director of the show right now. I'm Daniel Shee. I've been on the show a couple of times. I am not in show appearance, so I'm not going to even try to put my camera on. But I'm just going to go. I'm going to try to segue through this block. Johnny Manziel has come out and said that he will try to play pro golf, and so BS or real talk, Johnny Football has a chance in professional golf. Adam, we're starting with you.
Yeah, I think first of all, real talk is you got to love the West Campus Wi-Fi, right? Always coming out, you always failing exactly what you need. It seems like it's the bane of this show's existence. But for me, this pro golf thing, I think honestly it leans towards BS. I think it's similar with kind of Tim Tebow in baseball. I mean, you have these golfers who've been, golfing their whole lives, who've been, working towards the PGA their whole lives. And so, so they've been working towards this their whole life. And I think it's hard. Manziel's a great athlete, but I think it's going to be hard for him to try and just get on the tour just with 5, 6, 7 years of practice.
All right, I'm gonna before we continue, I'm gonna toss it back to Robert. So I'm gonna get out of the frame. Welcome back, Rob.
Oh, thank you so much. The campus Wi-Fi, you never know what you're going to get these days. So I'm guessing we finished up the Johnny Manziel talk. I'm going to move into Trevor Lawrence, who is reportedly happy right now with some of the shoulder progress after his surgery. Here's the statement. His surgery is no big deal at all. Adam, we'll start with you. BS or real talk?
Yeah, I'm going to go real talk on that one. I think he'll be fine. And the big thing I think is it's his left shoulder. It's his non-throwing shoulder. So I think that's the biggest difference. You always get concerned about anything on the arm of a quarterback that's their throwing shoulder. But luckily, it's his non-throwing shoulder. They say he'll be back to throwing the football 6 to 8 weeks. He might start from just throwing it from his knees, and then he'll eventually get up from there. We're still in March. He's got plenty of time, until summer workouts. And stuff. So I think Trevor Lawrence will be fine. He's shown his natural talent. I think he still has a lot of development to go. But since it's his non-throwing shoulder, I'm not as concerned. Clark, you got your thoughts on it?
Yeah. Poor Robert. I'm sorry, folks, that West Campus Wi-Fi is just trying to conspire to destroy TSTV right. There we go. It's good to see Robert's face. Sorry for interrupting. But anyways, to Trevor Lawrence's surgery, I'm actually going to go with BS. I think it's always a big deal, especially when it's the number 1 draft pick. You have to understand that's $1 million investment for your franchise. So to have an injury concern, especially this late in the process, that does worry me a little bit.
Clark, thoughts on Johnny Manziel too, real quick? I know you didn't get to answer that.
Yeah, it's hard.
Oh, I'm sorry, Clark. I might have skipped over you, Clark.
Oh, trust me, it's technical difficulties. It's broadcast television. Sometimes it happens, but no, I don't think Johnny Manziel is going to be Tiger Woods.
All right, well then if we'll move forward with the men's college basketball picks. Adam, we'll start with you. This is time to give us. We'll all give you our top 4 picks. Adam.
Yeah, so I've got Gonzaga at number 1. They're the only undefeated team now left. Baylor number 2. They fell to Kansas, but they bounced back with a big win over Oklahoma State last night. And then Illinois and Michigan are 3 and 4. I know Michigan has the better record. They have the better resume, but Illinois absolutely destroyed the Wolverines this past week. So that's why I'm actually going to go with Illinois over Michigan with the Illini at number 3 and the Wolverines at number 4, just because of results this week. Because, again, on the court sometimes matters a little bit more than the resume.
Yeah, I'm going to have to generally agree with you there. I'm going to show my top 4. I got Gonzaga, number 1, Baylor, number 2. I think those are kind of, ho-hum. We have the same one. I got Michigan flipped just above Illinois. I like Michigan's track record just a little bit more. But I think as we get into March Madness, it's just going to show itself. College basketball it's going to show itself to have a lot of parity. There's a lot of great teams at the top, and we'll see if Gonzaga can make that deep run that a lot of people expect. I remain skeptical. However, we'll see. Clark?
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I'm still a bit of a skeptic of Gonzaga, but hey, undefeated is undefeated. Clear number 1 team right now. Baylor has been excellent this season. I think the second best team in the country. Then I have Michigan at number 3. Even though they did have that bad loss, this is probably the best team in the Big Ten right now. Franz Wagner is on top of his game. And I think Illinois is getting hot at the right time, right before the NCAA tournament. I'm curious to see if they can make a deep run.
Yeah, Illinois, I think the team that I am definitely going to have my eye on the most as we move in closer to March. Well, that's it for this block. When we come back, Wi-Fi permitting, we'll have the NBA, college basketball, other UT picks for you. So stick around wherever you are. You don't want to miss it.
Men's basketball team needs to stop social distancing themselves from fans.
It has been overdone to death. Playing. Don't stop believing.
$5. Bye-bye, Raptors.
Welcome back into the 1-0 Sports Show for the final time this morning. Robert Trevino, once again, joined by Adam Ogburn, Clark Dalton. Let's get right into the picks. Trying to go 10-0 on 1-0. Let's start it off here with some college basketball. Number 6, West Virginia taking on number 17, Oklahoma State. I have the line, West Virginia favored by 3. Adam, who do you got?
Yeah, this is a really good matchup because Oklahoma State is peaking at the right time. They had lost to Baylor last night, but they had 2 wins against Oklahoma before that. But as reporter John Rothstein, he calls, traveling to West Virginia is tougher than a weekend at your in-laws. Why? Because they like to press Virginia. I think they cause enough problems to for Oklahoma State and star freshman Cade Cunningham. I think the Mountaineers come out here. It's a tight victory, but it's enough to cover the line.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Bob Huggins, they always got that press coming up on you. I'm taking West Virginia here. Clark?
I have West Virginia too. I'm a little bit concerned about Cade Cunningham's injury for Oklahoma State. He's their best player. He may not be 100%, and especially against a press defense, that's going to be a huge disadvantage for them.
Yep, and another game on our Saturday slate, number 7, Ohio State going on the road, they're at home against number 4, Illinois. That'll be Saturday at 3 p.m. on ESPN. Clark, we'll start with you. Who do you got?
Well, I think everybody on the show thinks I always pick Ohio State, but not so fast this time. Illinois is just a better team this year. They have much more strength from perimeter. Ohio State, I'm still not sure about them at guard. I think the Illini are going to take this one.
Well, I'm going to not so fast on that one. I like Ohio State mainly because this game is at home. I think this is going to be really close. And in college basketball, you can pretty much all you can do is hope to pick because in close ones, you really don't know how it's going to shape out. I like Ohio State, though, here. Adam?
Yeah, the Buckeyes are coming off 3 straight losses. And last Sunday, they were at home against Iowa in a big matchup, and they fell by 16. Illinois coming off a big win over Michigan midweek. I think they ride that momentum into a win over the Buckeyes.
All right, and some more Big Ten action here. Iowa, number 5. They're going to be facing number 25, Wisconsin. Iowa favored by, I put 3. Sunday, 11:30 a.m. on Fox. Clark or Adam, we'll start with you on this one.
Oh, man. The line is really, really tight. I've rode my luck with Iowa a lot this year. I'm going to jump over and take the Badgers now. Iowa, we've seen them slip up. They lost Indiana, swept them this year. The Hawkeyes have been looking good, but this Wisconsin team, they played Illinois tight. They only lost by 5 there. They played Purdue tight again this week. This Wisconsin team knows how to hang around, and I think they might be able to edge the Hawkeyes at the very end of this one.
Yeah, I do agree. This would be a time for Iowa to fall. We've seen them do that. I will not predict that, however. I like Iowa at home. I think they have a lot of talent. I think this isn't the game that they want to slip up on, especially it being a huge Sunday marquee game. Clark, how about you?
I agree with you, Robert. I think Luka Garza, these are his final games at home. He's not going to want to let his team slip. He leads them to victory.
All right, moving into the Big 12 now. Number 3, Baylor. This game's in Waco against Texas Tech. Clark, who do you have here?
I think it's actually going to be closer than people think, but I think Baylor walks away with this one. Even though Baylor's played some tight games, this is the best team in the Big 12. Mac McClung is a great player, but Texas Tech hasn't found that synergy they've had in past years. Baylor wins this one.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Baylor just looks like miles above anyone else in the Big 12, or at least it seemed that way in the regular season. I got the Bears. Adam?
Yeah, especially I think they'll bounce back. They've already bounced back from that slip up to Kansas. They got the big 11-point win over Oklahoma State last night. And I think Oklahoma State and Tech are kind of very similar caliber teams, just how they performed this year in their standings in the Big 12. I think Baylor, again, at home in Waco, I think they're one of the top 2 teams in college basketball, national title contender. They take care of business against Tech.
All right, going back to the Big Ten, I probably could have switched the order around a little bit better. Michigan State up against number 2 Michigan. I put this line at 9.5. Clark, we'll start with you here, or Adam. I keep switching it around. Adam, we'll start with you actually.
Yeah, 9.5 is a big line. I think the Wolverines will win this game, but I'm going to go with Michigan State to prevent Michigan from covering. We saw Michigan State. They actually beat Ohio State about a week ago. Michigan had a big 19-point win over them when these two teams met earlier, but this game is in East Lansing, so I think that will allow the Spartans to hang around and prevent Michigan from covering.
Yeah, I set the line and I got scared of it. I'm taking Michigan State as well. I think this one is going to be pretty close. Clark, how about you?
9.5 is a pretty big line, and you have to remember Michigan State is desperate right now. They need every win to even have a shot at making the tournament this year. I think they cover, but I still think Michigan wins by about 5 or 6 in East Lansing.
All right, well, this one is our game. TCU up against Texas. Texas are made them 5-point favorites. Sunday, 6 p.m., ESPN+. Clark, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think this line is about right. I think Texas, knowing them, they always have a tendency to make things close. So I can see this being a 5-point game. And even though TCU's record is not great, they play everybody in this conference hard. It just shows you how good the Big 12 is this year. You can't take a night off. Texas is still going to win this one, though.
Yeah, I'm taking Texas here. I think they're going to kind of ride the downhill after climbing the uphill in their last game. And I think that last one is going to give them a lot of momentum moving forward. Adam?
Yeah, it's not a Texas game if you're not having a heart attack in the final minute, because the Longhorns are taking it down to the buzzer. But I think with the depth they have, I think 5 points. I think the Longhorns can cover that against the Horned Frogs.
All right, let's do some football action. Premier League, Burnley up against Arsenal. That'll be Saturday at 6:30 a.m. So be sure to get up tomorrow as well. Adam, who do you got in this one?
Yeah, Arsenal's been on a better run of form over late. They're coming off a big win over Leicester last time out. Burnley actually tied Leicester as well recently, but they had a 4-0 loss to Tottenham 2 matches ago. So I think the Gunners, it's a tough game at Turf Moor. Burnley always defends well. I think Arsenal will eventually break through the Burnley defense, and this Burnley attack not prolific enough to keep up with the Gunners. I take Arsenal to take the 3 points.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'll say it a little less. Like I know a lot what I'm talking about, but yeah, I do like the offense of Arsenal. I don't think Burnley's going to be able to stop them. Clark, who do you got?
I'm going with Arsenal, too. Arsenal's won 3 of their last 5 matchups against Burnley, and also they just have better ball movement right now. I think that's going to give them the edge.
All right, let's go into the NBA. Not much NBA happening next week, but one of the games that will occur after the NBA All-Star break, Mavericks and Spurs, Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Clark, we'll start with you. Who do you got?
I'm going to go with the Spurs, surprisingly, on this one. Even though the Mavericks have Luka Doncic, they're just not playing with the same energy they were in the bubble. And this is kind of an interesting Spurs team because even though it's not Tim Duncan or Tony Parker or Manu Ginobili anymore, it's still the same system that's being used, and it's still good enough for them to be a playoff team. I like the Spurs in this one.
Yeah, I agree with you here. Not so much because of the Mavericks, but because of what you said about the Spurs, they've been really intriguing. I think especially after the All-Star game, they might have a little bit of an advantage against the Mavericks. Adam, who do you got?
Not so fast about that one. Y'all said it. Mavericks have Luka Doncic, and we've seen the Mavericks win some big games in the recent weeks. They took down the Celtics, and they took down the Nets as well. They took down the Nets rather convincingly. I think Luka does enough, and the Mavericks using that home court advantage. I think Dallas. I think this is a tight game. It goes down the wire. I think Luka makes maybe the last shot and gets the Mavericks a tight victory.
Yeah, all right. Moving on into some other NBA action, exhibition. Team LeBron taking on Team Durant in the NBA All-Star game. Adam, who do you got?
Yeah, I said this earlier. I think Team Durant has a better bench. I think Team LeBron has the better lineup. I think that better lineup prevails. You look at guys like LeBron. You got Giannis, Jokic in the paint. I think this is a very loaded Team LeBron. I think those starters do enough to get them over the line.
Yeah, I was going to go opposite. I think the bench is eventually going to help win out. I'm taking Durant on this one for a little bit of UT action. Clark, how about you?
It's hard not to pick Team Durant for the UT bias, but just looking at Team LeBron, they have more star power. I think the players on that team are used to the bigger moment. Damian Lillard, Steph Curry are just a few I can think of, so I think that's going to give them the advantage and help them prevail in the exhibition game.
All right, and the last pick of the day, women's basketball, TCU going up against Texas. That'll be Sunday at 1 p.m. on ESPN+. Texas favored by 2. Clark, who do you got?
I think this is a good line here, and it's like we always said, Texas plays close games. You know it's a Texas game if it's a 1-point game in the final minute. But I think Charlie Collier probably going to be your last games as a Texas Longhorn. She's not going to let her team fall, and she'll just raise her game to another level and lead Longhorns to victory.
All right. Well, that's it for this morning. Make sure I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm going a little early on this one, but I don't think it's too early to pick Texas. I do like Texas in this one. Adam, how about you?
Yeah, Clark, it's a great point that you made. It seems like every Texas sport, it's always coming down to the final minutes. But the Texans, they played a lot better against Baylor. They got beat by the Bears by 25. Excuse me. They played them up in Waco. It was only 7 this past Monday. So I think Charlie Collier and the Longhorns do enough down the stretch to edge a tight one up in Fort Worth.
All right, I'm being told by our producer we're getting an encore pick after the last game. If the Wi-Fi works throughout the show next week, yes or no? Clark, we'll start with you.
No, I'm not optimistic about the Wi-Fi. We've had this happen a couple times this semester. West Campus, get on it so we can have everybody who lives in West Campus on our show. We love having them on. So it's just like how this year's been. You just got to get through it. It's like that one song I've been listening to, Through the Storm. One of the lyrics is, it's all about perseverance, and that's what you have to remember.
Yeah, that is good. Adam, yes, no, Wi-Fi working next week.
I'll take the optimistic view. We're going to be heading into spring break next week. Hopefully, people will be in good moods. Hopefully the Wi-Fi is in a good mood too. I'm going to go yes on this one and cross my fingers. Probably both fingers for all the luck. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say that the spring break, maybe less people on their computers in class. So maybe we'll have a better chance with the Wi-Fi. Well, that's it for this morning for the real time. Make sure you tune in next week at 10 a.m. Be sure to check out our sister shows, College Press Box. It's Monday nights at 9:30. College Crossfire, hosted by our very own Jack T. Pigeon on Wednesday nights at 9. And for Adam Ogburn, Clark Dalton, and all those in Master Control, thank you, Daniel Shee. I'm Robert Trevino, and have a great morning.